This is one of the craziest MHA chapters of all time. Horikoshi just confirmed that Deku lost One for All and that he is now quirkless. Meanwhile, All for One is stronger than ever, and every hero and hero student who can still walk is trying to desperately fight him off. Is this how MHA ends? With a quirkless Deku and a bunch of dead heroes and hero students? Let's get into it. You guys know how this goes. If you enjoy my MHA content and you want me to keep pumping it out, then leave a quick like and comment for that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, do me a huge favor and subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Last time we got the backstory of what happened to President Mike and Aizawa after they were saved from falling to their deaths by Kurogiri. And we also found out how they managed to convince Kurogiri to start helping the heroes instead of the villains. The chapter made it clear that Kurogiri was still a Nomu and he didn't just revert back into Oboro completely. But some part of Oboro did awaken inside of him, so he is now still a Nomu but also still Oboro. He is not one or the other, he is a combination of both. Mike and Aizawa managed to convince Kurogiri to work together with them, and they used his warp gates to finish up all of the remaining villain fights and then gather up every hero with offensive capabilities who was still healthy enough to fight. They then teleported those heroes as well as Ares' detached horn to the main battlefield where Deku and All for One are currently located. Once Aizawa arrived, he approached Deku and pierced him in the neck with Ares' horn. This rewound Deku just enough to regenerate his severed arms, but it did not rewind all the damage that he has sustained up to this point in the battle. The previous chapter ended with a whole bunch of other heroes and hero students arriving to the main battlefield to back Deku up. The latest chapter starts with the students from Class 1A greeting each other on the battlefield after arriving through the warp gates. We see Kirishima, Shoji, Koda, Mina, Aoyama, Toru, Kaminari, Momo, Tsuyu, Jiro, and the still absolutely badass Mineta. And the rest of Class 1A is there as well, on top of some 1B students, and even some students from the other schools like Kami and Seiji. They all pledge to keep fighting as long as they are conscious, and Deku is overwhelmed when he sees them and when he hears how determined all of them are to help him. We then get an absolutely amazing page that shows all the many heroes and hero students arriving through the portals as they shout, "We are here!" This really is a powerful and symbolic moment, and it is the culmination of all the lead up that Horikoshi has given us about how this is no longer the story of how Deku became the greatest hero, this is now the story of how they all became the greatest heroes. It's been hinted at for a long time that the final battle wouldn't just involve Deku, and that it would involve a lot of teamwork, and that is exactly what is being set up right here and now. In the past, the Hero Society made a mistake by relying too much on one man, All Might, who was the symbol of peace and who was expected to basically hold society together through the force of his will and through his overwhelming power and popularity. But then when All Might got injured and couldn't keep up any longer, the Hero Society quickly began to rip at the seams, and eventually it all led to these terrible villain wars that we are experiencing right now. Without All Might, the regular people lost faith in the heroes, the criminals and villains were emboldened, and chaos ensued. But if the new Hero Society is built as a society where many different heroes work together to protect each other and everyone else, then the retirement of one man won't bring the whole society into chaos. There will be a lot more stability. I think that all of this makes sense, and I know that Horikoshi has been planning this for a very long time. And yet, All for One inside his new vessel is not worried at all, despite the fact that there are now dozens of powerful heroes and hero students ready to fight against him. When he sees all of these newcomers, he doesn't see them as a real threat, he just sees them as soon-to-be corpses. In his inner monologue, All for One explains that his personality was able to break free from Shigaraki's and remain after Shigaraki's personality shattered because of how mad he was when he realized that Yoichi had disappeared, or I guess the vestige of Yoichi. For All for One, the apparent disintegration of his brother's personality was a great tragedy, primarily because he felt that he owned his brother and that his brother was his property. And as we know, All for One has always been furious that his brother was able to escape his control in the first place. However, All for One knows that tragedies are what make people stronger, and he is using this tragedy to motivate himself and push himself to attain victory against the heroes. All for One suddenly activates a bunch of quirks at the same time, and grotesque mutations begin to form from his arms and other parts of his body. These mutations include all sorts of sharp weapons and tendrils and who knows what else, and they make All for One look like some dark angel straight out of hell. But even though All for One isn't worried, more heroes and hero students continue to arrive. New portals appear, one right above and one just below All For One, and out of those portals emerge none other than Shoto, Todoroki, and his father, Endeavor. While All For One is distracted by Zero, Shoto and Endeavor launch a huge father-son Kamehameha right into All For One, and this causes an absolutely massive explosion. Oh, sorry, did I say father-son Kamehameha? I meant father-son Flashfire Fist. Despite being severely injured from the Dabi fight, these two fiery mad lads decide that as long as they can walk, they can keep fighting. President Mike then arrives on the scene, and when he sees that everyone who can still fight is already there, he announces that today is the big day. This is the final mission of the heroes and the hero students. Today is the day that they end the war and defeat the final villain. And yet, All For One continues to mock the heroes, saying that many of them are either too weak or too wounded to do anything against him. He says that without All Might, they are nothing but scraps. But All For One should know better than to underestimate his opponents, because even though most of the heroes here are not at 100%, there are still a lot of them and they have extremely powerful quirks. All For One attacks, but then we see a whole bunch of powerful heroes using teamwork to fight back, including Hound Dog, Space Hero 13, Gran Orca, Burnin, and more. But even though they are successful in diverting the attack, All For One is still really fast and it requires dozens of powerful heroes just to divert one attack. So it's not like All For One is getting overwhelmed by superior numbers here. If anything, at this stage, it seems like All For One still has the clear advantage in the fight. Kendo calls out to the heroes to stay together, because to win this, they will have to fight as one. Deku being Deku, he tries to stand up and rejoin the fight even though he just had his arms reattached by Rewind like seconds ago. However, he is practically unable to move, because as I said earlier, even though Rewind allowed him to get his arms back, there was not enough power to rewind him longer than that. He was rewound just enough to get his arms back, but he was not rewound to before the fight started, so his body is still dealing with all the damage and all the injuries that he has accumulated over the course of this final war. Deku then seems to confirm that he no longer has One For All. Now I thought that he might still have base One For All at least, even if he lost all the other quirks because the Vestiges decided to go into Shigaraki and fight him from the inside. But this chapter seems to confirm that Yoichi is now gone, and so Deku has lost One For All. Deku is now quirkless, just like he was before he met All Might. Nevertheless, Deku claims that just like All Might after he transferred One For All to Deku, Deku still has some embers of One For All burning inside of him, and he intends to use these embers during the battle. Aizawa hands Deku some medicine and a clean shirt, and Aoyama then arrives and tells Deku to take his hand. Right now, Deku needs all of their power just as much as they need his, because the only way that they can possibly win this is if they all work together. Back in the shelters and around the world, everyone is still watching the fight, and they are watching how all the heroes and hero students are now fighting together as a team. We see the crowd in the shelters, we see Eri, Koda, and even Gran Torino all cheering Deku on. They are all telling him to do his best, and this time he doesn't have to do it alone. With the help of Aoyama and Aizawa, Deku is able to run again, and with the help of all of the other heroes and hero students, he will be able to fight again. This is their chance to form the ultimate hero team and defeat the final villain once and for all. This is their chance to bring it all home. Wow, what a crazy chapter, and this really is building up to the finale of the entire series. Believe it or not, I think we are only a couple of months away from the end of the MHA manga. It really feels like we are almost there, almost at the end. Do you guys agree? And do you think that Deku is really quirkless now? Like, what actually happened to Yoichi's vestige? Is he really gone forever, or is he just dormant somewhere within Shigaraki or within Deku? Could this turn of events mean that Deku will actually end up quirkless at the end of the story? I remember back when the series started, there were a lot of people who were mad that Deku didn't stay quirkless so that he could prove that even someone without a quirk could become a true hero. But who knows, in the end those people might actually get their wish. Deku might end up quirkless, and he might end up a hero like Batman who uses his ingenuity to be a hero instead of using superpowers. Also, do you think that anyone will actually die during this fight? It seems pretty unrealistic to think that everyone would survive this fight against All For One, especially since so many of them are injured and some of them are just students with a lot less experience in fighting villains than seasoned pro heroes. Will Horikoshi actually kill some heroes or hero students off in this finale? If so, which ones? And if not, do you think that would make the final battle seem unrealistic? Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you're looking for an epic MHA video to watch next, check out my video where I rank the 13 strongest multiple quirk users in the entire series, link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this video, leave a quick like to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a huge favor and subscribe right now, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications.